Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all mailbag show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your questions. I'm Ashley Mova, and if you've got a question that you want answered on air, you can send it over anytime to amcmovietalk@gmail.com. You could get it answered on Mailbag or Movie Talk, and sitting with me to answer those questions, the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, John Campea. John, how are you today?
I'm doing great. So excited to be doing Mailbag yet again, taking all these questions from everybody sends in. By the way, thank you guys for sending in all the questions. It really makes us feel so special.
All right, first one comes from Christopher D. Doty, and they write, "Hi AMC Movie Talk, I love the show. My question is, will Disney ever go back to the older form of animation? Example, Aladdin or The Lion King, even for a couple of films, or is that era just plain over? I know they had The Princess and the Frog, but will they ever have any others?"
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's funny because this issue actually comes up quite a bit when I'm having like movie discussions with friends of mine. It's like, is the traditional hand-drawn 2D animation coming back? Because even in The Princess and the Frog, there was quite a bit of actually computer-generated stuff that they did there. I believe the era is over. I believe the era of the 2D hand-drawn animation thing is over. And I think every once in a while, we will get a novelty project where, a 2D animated hand-drawn film and like a novelty thing will come out. But like, I don't think we're ever going to see where like 2, 3, 4 animated films, hand-drawn, cell animation stuff is back. There's just too much more that a studio can do creatively, what a director can do creatively when it's a CG environment. The look of 3D animation is now the look that kids have been growing up with now, because it's been around for a while now. And now this is the look and the feel and the texture that kids are used to. So, and look, it would also be something if like 3D animated films weren't making bank, but these movies are making bank. We talked on AMC Movie Talk the other day about, Frozen is the number 5 out of all the tens of thousands of films that have ever been made. The number 5 all-time worldwide box office.
That is insane.
Movie.
That's crazy.
Crazy. And then you look at movies like Wreck-It Ralph or Toy Story and things like that just make big money. These films make money. If they didn't make money, then maybe studios would look at, hey, maybe let's go back to the other style. But it's a new era. I don't think we're going to be going backwards.
That is so sad that kids today just won't have that same experience that we had. If you had to choose one, which one is your favorite Disney movie?
Oh, like of all time?
Yeah.
My favorite, it shifts sometimes, but 50% of the time, the way I'll answer that is the way I'll answer it today, is my favorite animated film of all time, not just Disney film, my favorite animated film of all time is probably The Lion King. The Lion King is just, there's something, that movie just works in so many ways, in so many different levels. It totally is time-proof. It stands the test of time. You can sit down now with a kid and watch Lion King, or you yourself can sit down and watch Lion King again, and it'll still feel fresh and new. It will not feel dated at all. The music is incredible. The characters are great. The story's good. It's got a great villain. It's the whole package. Yeah, for me, it's
I cried like a baby in The Lion King.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like that whole scene, and that scene of the stampeding, I can't remember if it was antelope or what it was, or gazelles that was stampeding. But like, I remember thinking at the time, like for little kids, this is terrifying. This is terrifying stuff. Now I might just tip my hand a little bit, but last year we did a March Madness for the greatest comic book films of all time. I think we're going to be doing another Madness tournament like we did for that last year, but we're going to be doing a like top 64 greatest animated films of all time, set up the brackets and see what comes out as the champion.
That's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to it. I think that'll be fun.
Cale Cohee writes, "Recently, I have heard you guys talk a lot about the timing of marketing movies. This made me curious of your opinion on the marketing of Batman vs. Superman thus far. The movie is still a good year out, but I have been surprised with how much they have already revealed. Last year, they had the short video snippet at Comic-Con, and they have already released a look of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, and the Batmobile. I understand the need to whet the appetite of fans, but are they putting stuff out too far in advance? Will they have any new stuff to surprise us with by the time 2016 rolls around? You guys are the bomb-diggity."
Look, you know how I feel about how far in advance trailers need to drop. A year is too soon. I just believe a year is too soon. But that being said, putting out a picture, an artistically put together picture of Aquaman, That doesn't count. I mean, that just gets us a little bit excited, but it's not a trailer. It's not a teaser. We're not seeing him in action. The fact that they put out an image of a concept image of Wonder Woman, I think they almost needed to do that because there were still a lot of people like me that think casting Gal Gadot was a big mistake. I still think it was. I'm cheering for her. I hope she does awesome. Go Gal. I mean, I'm
Go Gal.
But I think it was a mistake that they did. But so they wanted to stem the tide by saying, look, they thought they had a really good image. We bet if we show this to people right now, it'll get people talking about something else, about the look of Wonder Woman. And they do that. They showed us clips of snippets of Batman, but it's also preemptive action because if Zack Snyder himself takes a picture of Batman himself and puts it out, that kills the market look, if he hadn't put that picture out, everybody would be scrimping and crawling around in every dark corner trying to get some bad cell phone picture at 500 yards of Ben Affleck in the Batman costume, right? So what does Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers do? They do the brilliant thing. Yeah. Say, we're going to take a picture that's awesome and we're going to put it out and we're going to kill the appetite for anything else that's garbage. So I see them leaking that sort of thing as preemptive action. I think that was smart. But they're not trailers. They're not showing us much. Like you ask in the letter, are they showing us too much? Is there going to be nothing left to get excited about? They just showed us pictures. Yeah. So I think we're still in a really good territory right now with Batman versus Superman. They haven't started the big marketing campaign yet, nor should they have yet. Let's just wait and see when it does. And when it does, we'll realize them showing us pictures meant nothing at all. It's totally fine.
With any huge movie, though, wouldn't you say that no matter what, people are just going to go see it? Batman vs. Superman is an example. Like, even if the marketing was poo-poo and even if the trailers don't look like it's going to be that great, wouldn't everyone just go see it because it is Batman vs. Superman?
No. I think there are certainly, there's a demographic of people out there like me, suckers like me, who, yes, they could put out a 30-second trailer of Batman vs. Superman of Zack Snyder standing there and peeing on a puppy. Just standing there.
No, that's terrible.
I'm Zack Snyder. Look what I'm doing.
Terrible.
You're going to go see Batman versus Superman anyway. I mean, there's a demographic of people where he could put out that 30-second commercial and we would still go to see it.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
part of that. But what the difference between a movie making a bunch of money and becoming a bona fide blockbuster hit is going beyond that core demographic, going beyond the people who are like me are going to go see Batman versus Superman no matter what. They're going to make money off of me. They will make boatloads of money if they can get the people outside of that demographic, if they can get my mom to go see it, if they can get my cousins to go see it, if they can get the lady who does my hair, now they can get the lady, I don't have a lady that does my hair, just for the record, if they can, but all that kind of stuff, if they can get those people, those are the people that their marketing campaigns need to reach. And a lot of people will say, certain movies are critic proof. Batman vs. Superman is critic proof. No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, I believe even if bad trailers are put out and the movie is bad and it gets bad reviews, I believe Batman vs. Superman is still going to make money. But don't fool yourself. It would have made a lot more money had the trailers been good and if the movie was awesome and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, is there a core demographic that'll see it no matter what? Yes, absolutely. But we're not the ones they got to get. Yeah. They got to get all those other people who aren't in the same boat as I am.
Makes sense. Robert Clark writes, "Hey guys, I love the show. I watch it every day. I was wondering, what is the big difference between the domestic box office and the global box office, and why so much of a distinction is made between the two? I often hear about a film that underperforms domestically and then goes global and makes a decent amount of money, but then people still talk about that movie losing the studio money. Doesn't money made at the global box office still go to the studio? Thanks for the awesome work you guys do."
Yeah, absolutely, worldwide box office. But remember this too, that a lot of movies, including their worldwide box office, lose money. I mean, so don't just think that every movie, just throw in the worldwide box office and it made money. No, it didn't. A lot of movies did not make money. Majority of the movies don't make money, even when you take in consideration the worldwide box office. This question kind of comes up a lot too when we're talking about opening weekend, because when we do our opening every Monday, we run down the opening weekend at the box office and what was out. And people say, why are you only counting domestic totals and not worldwide? Well, the reason we only count domestic totals when talking about opening weekends on movies is because there's like 100 plus markets out there. There's 100 plus nations that movies can open up in, right? So I might be exaggerating, but not every country in the world has movie theaters. But what I'm saying is that play big Hollywood movies. There's lots and lots and lots of countries. And as we all know, movies do not open at the same time around the world. So when, let's say, for instance, what was a good example? Big Hero 6, right? Big Hero 6 opened against Interstellar, right? Big Hero 6 actually beat Interstellar opening weekend. When both movies were in their opening weekend, Big Hero 6 beat Interstellar domestically. Now, what then some people would say, but Interstellar had beat it on the worldwide box office. And what I try to explain to people at that point is that, well, that doesn't count. And the reason that doesn't count is because Interstellar opened in about 30 more countries on its opening weekend, whereas Big Hero 6 was having a slower worldwide rollout. So Big Hero 6 only opened in the US and a couple of other countries. Interstellar opened in a lot of countries on the same day, and therefore you're comparing apples and oranges. You're comparing apples to apples if you just say, okay then, for opening weekend, we just look at the domestic number and which one did better, because that's the only way they can be on a level playing field. And on a level playing field, Big Hero 6 beat Interstellar on its opening weekend. So yes, you do have to take, when trying to decide if a movie made or lost money, you do have to take into account what the worldwide box office did at the end of the day. But even then, it's subject to the same things. Like a lot of people think if a movie costs $90 million to make and it made $100 million, that means the movie made money. Actually means it lost a lot of money. We explained this before, but what happens is when you hear about the budget for a film, that doesn't count the marketing that went into it. And normally, there are exceptions, but normally you're talking anywhere between $20 and $50 million that a studio will drop on marketing a film. So now all of a sudden, let's say 30 for this case, that $90 million movie actually cost $120 million when you add in the marketing. So now it made $100 million at the box office. Now that movie lost $20 million. On top of that, that $100 million it made at the box office, that doesn't all go to the studio. About 1/3 of it stays with the movie theaters, the places that actually show the movies. So about 1/3. So now that $100 million it made actually is $70 million it made. That $90 million it cost to make the film actually cost $120 million. So a movie that cost $90 million to make on paper, that made $100 million at the box office, actually lost the studio $50 million.
When you say these things, it's like, why would anyone make a movie? Because you have to pay your actors and you have to pay everyone.
Yeah, I mean, making movies is expensive. Yeah. It's very expensive. And that's why, I think you're starting to see a new trend in Hollywood. About 4 years ago, there was this, production budgets were spiraling out of control. Every new movie you heard coming out, this movie is now going to be the most expensive movie ever made. Now, this movie is going to be, at some point, a couple of years back, Hollywood studios started to realize, maybe we shouldn't be spending $300 million with marketing on a movie, because if you spend $300 million, we kind of got to make like $700 million just to make profit, So as the money starts to come down, and now you're seeing more movies made for like in the $100 million range, the $80 million range, the $50 million range, the $160 million, that becomes more reasonable. And so when a movie makes $300 million worldwide, that most of the time you can say that's a profitable movie. In my chair. That movie can be a profitable movie. But yeah, there's a whole lot of numbers you got to take into consideration. But yes, the premise of your question is absolutely right. You do have to take worldwide numbers into account, not just domestic.
That conversation just stressed me out because all this money, like $80 million we're losing, we're waiting. All right, Sean Bates writes, my question is regarding Ant-Man. Do you think that the release of Avengers Age of Ultron only 2 months before will help or hurt the release of Ant-Man? You talked recently about trailers, so I'm not worried about them needing to release a new one, but no one seems to be excited for Ant-Man at all. And it doesn't seem that Avengers 2 will be playing into the Ant-Man story either, at least that we know of. I'm still really excited for Ant-Man and have high hopes for Paul Rudd and the success of the movie, even if no one else does. Let me know what you guys think.
I think Avengers coming out a couple of months before Ant-Man can do nothing but help Ant-Man, especially if Avengers 2 is awesome.
Yeah.
If Avengers 2 is awesome, then people are going to be coming out of the theater all buzzed, and they will not be able to wait to come back to the theater again to experience that again. What's Marvel got coming out next? Ant-Man in just 2 months? I've never heard of him, but I'm in. If Avengers 2 sucks, then that's really going to hurt Ant-Man a lot. I think Marvel would be really good. Look, Marvel knows that they need help. Marketing-wise, awareness-wise, they need help with Ant-Man. They know that. I would be shocked if we get to the very end of the credits of Avengers 2 and there's not an Ant-Man thing at some point somewhere. They have got to leverage this to pump Ant-Man. They know they have to do this. So like I said, I don't know that they're doing it. I'm just going to be really, really surprised if they don't. If they do, and Avengers is great, then the close proximity, I think, will do nothing but help Ant-Man.
What do you think of this miniature marketing they're doing? I'm loving it. I'm like,
well, like the poster where you got them this big. I think it's creative. Now, at some point, they got to put the pedal to the metal and really start marketing this thing. But that presents a challenge. Remember, I'm saying Avengers coming out, or like coming out so soon before Ant-Man is actually help. But what it's challenging is that right now their marketing attention has to all go to Avengers, basically. But I'm telling you, about 1 week after Avengers is open and it's already in theaters, I think you're going to see Marvel and Disney put the pedal to the metal. I think you're going to see them go full throttle and really start to push Ant-Man. For now, if they try to push Ant-Man, it's going to get kind of lost in the buzz of Avengers. So what are they doing? They're putting some stuff out, the miniature marketing, some gimmick marketing. And gimmick is not a bad thing. Gimmick can be a very, very good thing, used in the right way. So they got some gimmick marketing. They put out one trailer kind of well in advance. Once Avengers is in theaters, you're going to see them go crazy on the Ant-Man marketing.
I believe it. Andy writes, hey guys, how did the 2012 movie Chronicle make 10 times its budget? And we haven't heard anything more than who's writing in over a year.
Well, I mean, you know what? I think it's not Reitman. Jonathan, fact checker Jonathan. Look, who wrote Chronicle again? I forget. It's the same guy who wrote that Superman thing. Dennis, do you remember who wrote? Landis, right? I was thinking it's not Reitman. That's the other. It's Landis. Landis wrote it, and I love the first Chronicle. And it had to be good because I was so sick and tired of found footage movies. And so I walked in to watch Chronicle with no expectations at all. And I was blown away by it. I loved it. I thought Josh Trank is the director, Landis is the writer. They did such a great job. It's one of the reasons why I'm very optimistic about the new Fantastic Four, because Josh Trank, I thought, did a great job with Chronicle. I think he will do a great job with the new Fantastic Four. But what happened is Landis came out afterwards because Fox was saying, we're going to move ahead. We're going to make a sequel to this. Yes. But the problem was, if I remember the stories right, Landis was basically saying, Fox just wants us to redo Chronicle again. They just want it with a new group of kids that discover powers for the first time and blah, blah, blah. He's like, and Landis was like, I want to create the next chapter. And they want us to do this. And apparently things fell apart. He left. Then I heard some rumblings about a new writer being brought on, and then nothing. So I don't know if they're really secretly plowing ahead with Chronicle 2. Or if they were plowing ahead and thought, you know what, everybody in the public seems to be reacting to what Landis said. People want the next chapter. They don't want just a repeat of the first Chronicle. That's not how you build a franchise. And right now, the big money is to be made in franchises. And just repeating the first film is not how you develop a franchise. So I haven't heard anything, but there's been behind the scenes, obviously, drama with it. And I can only assume, and once again, I'm just assuming, I don't have a lot to back this up with. I'm just assuming at this point that a lot of that drama and the background fighting and about the creative differences that they're having, that's probably what's putting the brakes on things right now.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of drama.
Yeah.
When a movie isn't going to be made anymore, do people come out and just officially say it, or are we there to assume over a certain period of time?
Sometimes it's said, like I remember when they were trying to make a Halo movie with Peter Jackson producing and Neil Blomkamp directing, like years and years and years ago. When that movie was done, they came out and said, yeah, the movie's done. It's not actually happening. But most of the time they just stop talking about it. But with big money comes big drama, right? I mean, you've been a girlfriend, you know that. That's the truth. Big money comes big drama, right?
Diamonds. Diamonds. Molly Martin writes, hey guys, love the show. I was curious. I was watching an old AMC Movie Talk episode and saw that John Cambia thought it was so stupid to use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in Avengers Age of Ultron. So I was wondering, with the awesome trailers that have come out, do you still feel the same way, or have your thoughts and expectations changed? Thanks.
Nope, my thoughts haven't changed. Because, I mean, and how are the trailers going to change my mind? What do we see of Quicksilver? Nothing. We see him standing in front of Ultron for a second beside his sister looking up at Ultron. And then we see a quick shot of him on a bus or something running fast. That's what we see. We see Scarlet Witch going, ah! and throwing some kind of fireball, like as if she's in Street Fighter. Hadouken. Anyway, so we see her like, and so we really don't see, there's nothing in the trailers to either make me feel worse or make me feel better as far as those two go. They have been good trailers, but nothing about them that would make me feel any different one way or the other. Look, my feeling has just always been this, that there are other characters they could have and should have used other than Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. I think, look, just leave them in the X-Men universe. Let the X-Men use them. I understand they had the right to use them. These are the only two characters in that X-Men and Marvel deal that were allowed to be used by both. That was set out right from the beginning. Those are the only two characters that can be used by both. And we have the X-Men universe using them now, and then Joss Whedon decided to use them for the Avengers. It didn't need to be them. I'm sure they're going to play important roles in the movie, but I'm also already certain that they could have had different characters play those important roles and done them just as effectively. So, hey, look, I think it was a bad idea. The movie is still going to be awesome. It's still going to be incredible. I think those characters will work out great. I will just personally always still feel, though, they could have done the same thing with other characters and made it less confusing for the general audience.
When I was looking this up online, it seemed like everyone hated this idea. Like everyone was not into this idea. So when a movie's done, it's like, what more can the studios do? Like just cross their fingers and hope and wait, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's true of every movie. Like every movie that ever gets made, just about, almost every single one, studios and actors and directors, they set out to make the greatest movie ever made. I mean, that's what they all want to do. Studios greenlight movies because they looked at the script and then they heard the director's vision and heard the producer's visions and saw the cast line up and think, this could be good. This could be really good. And they greenlight it. And then at some point, you just got to sit back now and cross your fingers. There are great scripts turned into bad movies. There are great stories that get mixed up and lost in interpretation, become something else. You know, everybody starts off thinking they're going to make a great movie, and they want to. But I keep saying this, making good movies is hard. Everybody acts like, oh, just make a good movie. Oh, okay. I'll just make a good movie. Thank you very much. While we're at it, I'll put my foot behind my head too, just like that.
Contortionist John.
Yeah, I'm Contortionist John. No problem. Yeah, it's easy, right? No, making movies is like making a good movie is next to impossible. So that's why I think when a movie comes out that is good, that's part of the reason why I freak out so much and I get so excited about it.
Kyle Mackus writes, my question is about how people raise their expectations too high after having a beloved movie get a sequel or prequel. No matter how good Star Wars 7 is, people are going to complain about everything. Same with what will probably happen with the Avengers sequel and what already happened with The Lord of the Rings with The Hobbit. People think that all sequels have to be better than the first, even if the other movie is still a great movie, just not as good as the ones before.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, let's talk about that one statement he made near the end about how everybody seems to think if you're going to make a sequel or a prequel or a remake even, it has to be as good as or better than the previous one. I reject that notion. Like, look, to me, if a movie is a 7, look, we live in a culture right now where I hate the 10 mentality. What is the 10 mentality? I feel like we live in a culture right now where it's like, if something's good, everybody wants to have 10, there's a 10. It's the most awesome, fantastic thing ever. And when in reality, it was probably pretty good. It's pretty good. But even if something's pretty good, 10, it's perfect, everything. We live in a 10 mentality culture right now. Everything's 10, 10, 10. To me, like if I come out of a movie and I say that was a 7, that means I really liked it. That means it's way above average and I really liked it. So if that's the case for me, right, and you've got an original movie that was like a 9, if a remake or a sequel or a prequel comes out and it's an 8, you know, there will be people who complain, it's not as good as the first one, why bother doing it? They gave us a movie that was an 8. That's awesome. That's great. I think too often we try to judge movies in comparison to the originals. When really what we should do as film fans is judge a movie, whether it's a reboot, a prequel, or a sequel, judge it on its own merits. And I think if we did that more, we would end up enjoying more movies. Now, as far as the other part of the email saying people are going to complain about Star Wars Episode 7 no matter what, I disagree with that. Look at the first Lord of the Rings movie came out, which is called Fellowship of the Ring. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Well, then the second, and everybody loved it, it got nominated for Best Picture. Then the second Lord of the Rings came out, and everybody loved it even more. When Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers came out, it also got nominated for Best Picture. Well, then another sequel came out and everybody loved it even more, and it won 11 Academy Awards. Godfather 2 is celebrated. It's a sequel to The Godfather. Everybody loved The Godfather. Godfather 2 comes out. It is celebrated as one of the greatest films of all time. Empire Strikes Back comes out after Star Wars. And a lot of people out there, not me personally, but a lot of people consider Empire Strikes Back to be one of the greatest films of all time and probably the best Star Wars film of all time. So, it's not always the case. It happens sometimes, maybe even frequently, but it's certainly not always the case that people are just going to write off a sequel. There are a lot of beloved sequels.
What sequel would you say is your favorite? Your favorite sequel?
My favorite sequel is Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay.
Return of the Jedi, the third film in the Star Wars. Return of the Jedi is also. I'm in the not a vast minority. I'm in the minority of Star Wars fans that Return of the Jedi is actually my all-time favorite Star Wars movies. I love them all. It's like they're all 10s, but one's 10, one's 10.1, and one's 10.2. But for me, Return of the Jedi is my favorite sequel of all time.
Isaac Bale writes, "Hey AMC, I watch your show every day. I've emailed you guys several times in the past with questions that I feel would make great topics and I'm really curious about. You've never featured one on the show or on the Mailbag show, which I do not take personally because of how many emails you get. However, I am curious as to how you pick your questions. What are the criteria and certain types of questions you look for if there are specifics? Thanks and keep up the awesome work and congrats on phase 3.
Yeah, a bunch of questions will get picked out, passed on to me. I'll decide which ones actually we go with or not. And here's some of the criteria. Let me start by talking about questions that people can send in that, because, we get questions like this all the time. And I get tweets all the time. What did I ever do to you? Seriously, I've gotten these tweets. What did I ever do to you? Why won't you ever use my question on AMC Movie Talk? It's like, dude, on each Mailbag episode, we take 8 questions. I got 1,400 questions sent in last week. The odds are, I keep hitting the thing on the chair. Odds are, no matter how hard we try, the odds are we won't get to your question, but maybe we'll get lucky and we'll be able to get it on, right? So the question is, let me tell you about some of the things that will almost guarantee your question doesn't get used. Number 1, writing a book.
Yes.
Like, you would not believe how many, hey, Dennis, can you just bring up that graphic again of the email question we just read? If you can grab that and bring it up there on the screen. So, for instance, so there we go. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. This is a good length email. Sometimes they're a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. This is a good one. But I kid you not, I get some emails from people passed on to me that are like 5 paragraphs. John, let me break down for you why I believe Cocoon was the greatest film of all time. And then they'll go into the 6 paragraphs long, right? And say, and then at the end, could you please address why each one of these points you agree with or disagree with me? Thanks and love the show. And I'm like, this dude just spent 2 hours writing this email, and there's no way I can use it. It's just too long. So the first thing, if we open an email and we see it's this long, we don't even read it. We just can't, unless it's an email about something else other than a question for Mailbag. So that's one. Number 2, asking about things that absolutely nobody else knows about. So we'll get emails like this, right? And I totally understand why they're sending it. This is cool, but what would they do is hey, John, I'm just wondering if you ever read the 1975 Japanese comic Tashiki and His Dog. I think it would make a great movie. What do you think? It's like, okay, well, all right. Well, maybe I'm familiar with Tashiki and His Dog. Maybe I'm not. But even
is that real?
No, I just made that up. It sounds real, though, isn't it? I almost had you convinced. Tashiki and His Dog. So even if I'm aware and I know who Tashiki and His Dog is and what that property is, even if I do, the fact of the matter is less than 1% of the people who watch AMC Mailbag are even going to have ever heard of or know what Tashiki and His Dog are. And therefore, if we bring up that question and spend 6 or 7 minutes on it, we're just alienating everybody. So picking really super obscure questions is almost a guarantee that we can't address it, because then we're just asking 95% of the audience, just turn off your everything, because you all have no idea what we're talking about. So we try to stick to things that most people will know about, not necessarily popular, but that there's at least a good chance that most of the people listening will know what it is we're talking about. So that's a big thing. But also a big thing that lessens your chance of getting your question on the show is if it's a comic book movie question. Now, you'll notice that like out of every 8 questions, we'll probably have about 2, maybe 3. So maybe about 20%, 30% of our questions will be comic book. I mean, which is cool. Comic book movies right now are the most prolific, biggest, most popular, most successful, most, they're rolling like a machine right now. So obviously most questions we get are going to be about comic book movies. And that's cool and that's fine. We totally get that. But I kid you not. When I start going through those 1,400 emails, 9 out of every 10, maybe sometimes 8 out of every 10 will be comic book related questions, right? Which is totally cool and totally fair. I love taking comic book related questions. But 90% of the questions we get are comic book related questions, but only about 20% of the questions we use are comic book related questions. That means if you send in a question that's not a comic book related question, your question is in a bucket of only 10% of the questions that get sent in. And 80% of our show is dedicated to those 10%. Your odds of getting your question on mailbag spike. And it obviously doesn't guarantee it, but your odds spike if the questions you send in are non-comic book related questions. Your odds drastically go down if you send in comic book related questions, because even though we're guaranteed to take 2 or 3 of them, you are now in the biggest bucket where most people send their questions in. So your odds actually go down. So we are always going to take comic book related questions. Absolutely we are. But I'm just letting you know, if you're trying to find the angle on how to increase your odds of getting your question on Mailbag or on Movie Talk, even or via Twitter or whatever, you increase your chances if you keep it short, don't make it a novel. Don't ask about something that's some super obscure property like Tashiki and his dog. And try to make it about something other than a comic book movie. Those will, look, comic book questions will get asked, all that kind of, yeah, but I'm just saying you increase your chances if you do those 3 things.
Yeah, and you mentioned Twitter, just a little tidbit for you guys, send it towards the beginning of the show. Like the second you say, all right guys, we're gonna take some live questions, literally I will go from like 20 notifications to 900 notifications. I'm like, why doesn't Ashley pick my questions? Send it towards the beginning of the show.
Yeah, there we go.
Tips for the day, guys, tips for the day. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks you guys so much for joining us. And just a reminder, lots of great movies being shown in AMC theaters today. So go ahead and head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theaters, showtimes, and ticket information. And if you want a podcast version of this episode, check out the description box below and make sure to click that subscribe button. Thanks to the guys in the room, Dennis and Jonathan, and thanks to you, John. John, where can people find you online?
You can follow me on Twitter or on Facebook. Just get on there and follow me at John Campia.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. And I hope you guys are having a great Sunday, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.